Hey, Jillian.
Hi, Jeffrey.
I'm really excited about today's episode.
Well, we did it such a long time ago, and it was such a fun episode to record. And now we have an opportunity to show everybody that it is possible to buy fine art like a Picasso, and it's not as expensive as you think it would be. So,
Yeah,
yes.
no, it's exactly right. I mean, we filmed this episode already back when we were in Vegas in the fall, and it's the first time we are ever doing an episode on location. So that's kind of fun. And we filmed. This is part one of two. And I didn't even tell you this yet, Jillian, but I was talking to Veronica off the air, and we're going to release part two as a special bonus episode tomorrow at this time.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys will get to see this whole, our whole trip to Las Vegas where we went to Art Encounter, and it was just so cool. So Jeffrey, take it away.
Okay. Well, I think we'll just start the show. What do you say?
Sounds good.
All right.
Help me, my brother, can you lend me a hand as I walk through this land of confusion? If we give to each other, then there's nothing to take. Let's live life for the moment before it slips away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jillian Sidoti, and this is my partner in crime, Jeffrey Holst, and this is the Last Life Ever podcast. Today we're on location, which we never get to do because we started the show during COVID-19, and you never get to be on location during COVID-19. Today we have the incredible pleasure of being at Art Encounter in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, with Brett Maly, one of the directors here. And your dad actually started this gallery,
right? Yeah,
right?
He's still our CEO. He started the gallery almost 30 years ago in 1992, and we've been going strong ever since.
Oh my gosh, that's a long time to have an art gallery.
Especially here in Las Vegas. Usually anything older than about 5 years, they blow up or explode.
It seems like there's an art gallery on every street in Las Vegas, though. So there's a lot of competition.
Well, there's a lot of competition, but we have an unusual niche in that we really do all manner of art services as well. We do appraisal, we do vetting and authentication. We represent high-end fine art. So we're not just, kitschy art of the day, that type of thing. Although we do, sell contemporary works too, but we really have a wide breadth and scope.
No, we're going to get into some of the art you have here, and you have some amazing art. I am incredibly impressed. But before we do that, I want to talk about you specifically and how you got into this. Obviously, your dad was into it. What did he do to start the art gallery?
It's a little interesting. He'd always had a passion for art, but he never really done anything with art other than, some brokering and some collecting. We were talking earlier about going to museums and things, and he took me to a lot of museums and a lot of galleries and things, but really he never did anything with it until the gallery. He had been in the computer industry for decades.
No kidding.
He actually owned a computer company for years and years and years.
Right, so he was in the
computer industry.
But starting more than 30 years ago?
So, yeah.
So he was really early in that.
He's been an entrepreneur. He started that in his computer company in 78 or 79.
Wow.
Yeah.
And crazy.
Ended up, having a division in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Dallas, Texas. was really a pioneer for a lot of the technologies now that are used in CAD design. He kind of was a forerunner of a thing called stereolithography that did 3D modeling for a lot of.
So it's still intersecting with art.
Well, yeah, that part was a little bit, but
Yeah.
he just got so tired of the whole rigmarole and the computer industry and the competition. And as soon as they came up with something, a week later it was obsolete and trying to stay ahead of the curve. And he finally just said, I want to get as far removed from the computer industry and technology as possible. What do I want to do? Because I think he was probably maybe 40 at that time. He said, I've always loved art. I think I want an open art gallery. I've always loved Vegas. He used to come here for Comdex and all the big computer conventions. He said, I think I'm going to move to Las Vegas and start an art gallery.
Oh my, okay. So where were you guys originally?
Well, that was when we were in Dallas, Texas. My father had opened up another branch of his computer company there. And he just finally up and said, I'm out of here. I want to get out of the computer industry. And he sold the company lock, stock, and barrel and picked up the family, and we moved operations out here.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. So how old were you then?
I was a teenager. Actually, I was going to school at TCU, Texas Christian in Fort Worth. And my intention was to continue staying there. But when I heard my father was going to come out to Las Vegas and start a gallery, as an 18-year-old, that sounded kind of fun. So I said, you mind if I take a semester off and help you open up the gallery? So I did that. And that was, almost 30 years ago, and I've been here ever since.
So where did you guys learn about art? If he had a computer background and you were at TCU, what were you at TCU
I was a communications, actually radio, TV, film.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was my major there.
Okay.
And, again, I had an interest in art. I liked to draw. I took some art classes, but never in a million years thought it was going to be my career.
Oh, wow. Okay. So tell me, if you don't know that it's going to be your career and you're opening an art gallery in a brand new city, your dad doesn't really have an art background.
Not a real art background, no.
How do you start?
Well, we kind of let the art speak for itself. When we first moved out here, we were borrowing a concept from a gallery that was in Dallas at the time. It was the original Art Encounter. And what their thing was they would rent space to the artist. It was almost like what they call a co-op, where they would have specific space for the artist. And we were the first gallery like that in Las Vegas. And at one point, we had over 100 different artists. We had 12,000 square feet. Our first gallery was over at Spring Mountain in Valley View, which is now Chinatown.
Yeah.
But we predated Chinatown. And, we were there for about 16 years in that same location. Had, like I said, a lot of regional artists. We really promoted. My father was very good about really promoting and marketing local talent and espousing some of the up and coming local artists. And it was great. It was really a good business model for us, and it worked really well right up until the recession in 2008.
Oh, wow.
Which, that hit a lot of people hard. But we really let the art speak for itself. We were very diverse, had a very eclectic collection. And once I finished my degree, which I finished up at UNLV, I came on as Director of Artist Relations, where it was my job to kind of work with the artist and curate their collection and bring them in. And
so what did you finish your degree in then?
It was communications.
Okay, so you stuck with communications.
Stuck with communications, finished my degree out here.
Wow.
And I did go to graduate school in art in 2004. That's where I got my certification as an appraiser.
Okay.
Which that kind of came about in a weird happenstance too, because we had a local appraiser that we would work with. And we were pretty popular by that time. People would call us and say, where do I take my art to be appraised? And we'd say, well, call this woman. And we had a good relationship until one day she called us and said, I'm not taking on any new clients. Don't refer me any more business. Bye.
Oh, wow.
Click.
Was she just tired of it?
Well, she was getting up there in age, and I think she was trying to slow down. And, at that time, and even to this day, there's really not much in the way of appraisers, or at least certified appraisers here in Las Vegas. So my dad and I were like, boy, who do we refer? Do we need to find another appraiser? And I think it was my father that said, well, why don't we just do it? And I ended up going out to UC Irvine, and I got my graduate degree out there in appraisal studies, and have been working primarily as an appraiser for the gallery since 2004.
That's really cool. So I'm guessing what you're telling me is that there's only a few locations. Obviously, there wasn't a place in Nevada that you could go to, so you had to find a place to get this certificate.
Well, exactly, yeah. There's an organization called the American Society of Appraisers, the ASA, and they're one of the major appraisal organizations. And they had a program, a certification program through UC Irvine. So, we had to travel out there. And the original plan was for Dad and I both to become certified appraisers. But when you have a family business and, it's
somebody's got to run it.
Somebody's got to run it. So he drew the short straw. So he stayed here when I went out there. And
how long were you there?
Well, I mean, to get the certification, it took probably a couple of years. I wasn't out there continuously, but
so it does take a while. It's not like a while.
No, I had to take, probably about 8 different classes, but I took them, a couple here, a couple there, and I go out there for a few weeks at a time. And like I say, over the course of a couple of years, I got my certification.
I want to back up for a second. So you were having local artists. You had 12,000 square feet. And you let the art speak for itself. How do you price it, or do you let the artists price it themselves?
Well, one thing we really did do was kind of get a better feel for the market. My father started a organization called Museums and Attractions in Nevada, and through them we kind of learned a little bit more about the art scene, what was hot, what was popular, what was selling for how much. So kind of through the school of hard knocks and having been here for a while, we got a pretty good feel for what the Las Vegas market would support and price points it would support. And, a lot of times we would price, and I think it's still a way a lot of artists will price. They'll price, by a square inch, price per square inch, where, they might start at, $1 or $2 per square inch when they're first starting, their foot in the door. Then as they, build book and, are in exhibitions and galleries and museums and things like that and make some sales, gradually you can increase that price per square inch up to, $4, $5, $6. And
I gotta start my art career.
Right.
But we found that worked well and kind of kept continuity. And as the artists built in stature, their art appreciated accordingly.
Okay, so then 2008 comes around, and it sounds like to me that was a turning point for you. Did you change your business model at that point?
We had to. We really did.
Yeah.
It was tough because art's always one of the first things to go in a recession.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of artists that were, again, renting space in our gallery, and that was tough for them to do, and we weren't making as many sales as we had been. So we ended up getting out of the retail industry for a time, and we closed our major location. But we ended up segueing more to the service side, which by that time I'd gotten my certification as an appraiser. We were doing more on the brokering of high-end art. So we kind of transitioned more from a regional and a local oriented art gallery to most of what you see here today, which are a lot of the old masters, late 19th century impressionist, all the way through to mid 20th century pop art. And again, as much as I do miss those days dealing with a lot of local artists and kind of espousing the local talent, that was a lot of fun. You have to change with the times. And unfortunately, that was unsustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally understand. You look like you're ready to ask a question.
I've been hogging all this. No, it's fine. You have lots of questions.
My tagline for this show, it seems to be, I have lots of questions. And I don't know if it drives.
You didn't do it this time.
I didn't do it this time. I just kept asking questions.
Yeah, I was just going to see if you'd ever run out.
And I'm glad you all could come because, quite frankly, art through like a Zoom interview, it doesn't come across. You gotta be here for it.
So, and thank you so much for giving us the time. So the way I found out about you is because I saw you on television. So can we talk about that for a minute? Like, how did you get into being an art expert for Pawnstars?
Well, that was an interesting story too, because quite frankly, when they reached out to me, I hadn't heard of the show yet because it was fairly early on. I think they just started filming their second season. And we got a call, but this time we didn't have a retail gallery. We were kind of all cloistered up in the suite next door, suite 117, where we had our framing operation. That was before we expanded into this gallery. But we got a call and they asked for the appraiser, and I picked up the phone and they said, "This is so-and-so, and I'm a producer on the show Pawnstars. We'd love for you to come down and evaluate a piece of art that's going to get brought into the shop." And I remember, putting my hand over the receiver and turning to my father and saying, "There's somebody with Pawnstars on the phone. They want me to come down and look at a piece." He's like, "Pawnstars? Yeah, do it." Because he had heard of the show and was familiar with it, but I was clueless. So I did it, and it was great. The episode went well, and that was the start of about a 50 episode run.
And now Brett's a star, everyone. He's got that winning television smile. So there you go.
It was fun, and it was good practice too, because most of what you see on there, obviously there's some Hollywood to it.
Of course. Yeah.
But for the most part, once I get on camera and the piece is presented to me, everything that transpires, is natural, and I don't know exactly how it's going to come across and if Rick's going to buy it and whether the piece is authentic until I look at it. So keeps me on my toes.
Yeah.
Because they can.
Well,
you never know what they're going to spring on me.
It must be good advertising for your shop too, because obviously I would have never heard of you if not for that.
Sure. I mean that show. I mean, I think it's been on since 2009 now.
Wow, it's a long
over
running
10
show.
years.
Yeah.
I think it's still on in over 100 countries and 30 some languages.
And they don't do like 2 episodes a year either. They do a lot of episodes.
They do a lot of episodes.
They film a lot of episodes.
Yeah, they film year round. It doesn't really matter. They're all, I mean, I think they might have slowed down a little bit now that they've been on for as long as they have been. But they typically film year round.
So have you, and I haven't watched Jeff watches more TV than I do.
That's funny. Yeah. I used to watch more TV. I don't hardly watch TV anymore.
It's very educational.
Well, my father-in-law is a huge fan of the show. Actually, he'll be jealous I met you. So I should have had. I got your book here. I should have gotten you to write it to him instead of me. He was kind enough to personalize it for me. Huh?
Look at you.
Yeah,
But the book's called, in case any of you are interested,
Sure.
It's The Pocket Picker for Fine Art, a field guide to protecting and profiting in fine art, which I'm going to get for my 9-year-old because he loves art and he always wants to buy stuff. And I tell him it's too expensive.
Yeah.
But that actually, we were talking earlier off camera about buying art.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about if somebody wants to buy art.
Sure.
Where should they start? What should they start with?
Well, probably the best thing for them to do is get familiar with art and what they enjoy. And you had mentioned how much you like to go to museums and take your son to museums, which I think is fantastic. And I think that's the most important first step, because from there you kind of get a feel for what you like, what speaks to you, because you don't want somebody else telling you. You want to see what jives with you and what you feel.
No, that didn't work very well for me, because I went to these museums that you may have heard of, like the Uffizi Gallery and the Louvre, and I decided I really like Michelangelo sculptures, and I haven't been able to acquire one.
That's crazy.
I don't understand.
But again, once we have a better idea what speaks to you, Michelangelo. I mean, there are a lot of different artisans that are contemporary who are disciples of Michelangelo, like Frederick Hart, for example, or somebody like that, where you can buy edition sculpture that's very much like Michelangelo, but doesn't cost.
I don't really have this space either, because the ones I like are 18-foot tall.
Could you imagine in your split level in Chattanooga, Tennessee? You just have
a full-size replica of the David or something.
And that is a problem, because we have a lot of really good customers, and they all eventually end up without wall space or floor space. They run out.
It's a legitimate concern for me, and I have bought from your gallery before.
Right. I know you.
I love the gallery, and your newsletter is amazing. So people could probably sign up for that on your website.
And we try to send out informative newsletters and talk about what we bring in and give a little bit of an education, because that's another aspect too. The story behind the art is, I think, just as important as the art itself, because I'm kind of a history buff and a history nut, and knowing what the artist was thinking, the techniques that they used, how they did it, all of that to me is
right.
No, and we were talking earlier with Scott, who told us some amazing stories about some of the art in here. I want you to tell those for our audience. And if you guys want to go to the website and sign up for the newsletter, it's artencounter.com. So go check that out.
And you can buy the book there too.
You can buy the book there as well, which you should. Also available on Amazon. So I want to ask you one last question before we start looking at some art, and maybe, or my last question.
Your last question?
Okay. Yeah, I know. All right. I don't want to step on Jeff's parade.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Step on a parade.
If you're really tall.
That's Godzilla.
Godzilla. Right. So what on Pawnstars, what is the best piece of art you've ever gotten in the door and made you go like, oh, I wish I had this in my gallery?
Are you familiar with Edward Hopper?
Yes.
Yeah, he did Nighthawks and Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Yeah, that was a piece they brought in. It was a gentleman who had gotten it. He was, I can't remember the exact story, but he was a friend of another major artisan by the name of Achille Gorky.
Okay, don't know that person.
But who was kind of an abstract artist.
Okay.
But there was a major art scene, obviously, in the 20s and 30s and 40s in New York, and a lot of these artists would hobnob and rub shoulders and sit at the cafe, and they'd exchange drawings and things. Well, this gentleman, who I can't remember if he was a family member or had family who knew Achille Gorky, had been given this piece that was ostensibly given to Gorky by Hopper, and it was a charcoal drawing. Typical, his brownstones, very austere, kind of lonely. His work was all about, kind of empty streets, empty diners, things like that, where you got a sense of desolation. It was kind of at the time when, urbanization was going on, and he really kind of espoused that. And they had an original chalk drawing, I'd say about 24 by 30, done by Edward Hopper circa 1930s, I think. And it was it would have been, assuming authenticity, and now again, I couldn't tell in 5 minutes, if it was authentic, but it looked right. The charcoal was right. The paper was right. The setting was perfect. Exactly what he would have done. It would have been probably about a $2 million piece.
Wow. So what did he do with it?
Well, actually, Art Encounter did work to authenticate that. And as I'll tell you as we go around, I'll show you some of the pieces. The authentication of artworks is a very lengthy process in a lot of respects, because many times you have to, it's almost like preparing a court case. You really have to gather evidence from this source, and then present it to another source, and then hopefully.
Did you tell them we were lawyers?
No.
Okay, just checking. We're both lawyers.
Okay, well, there you go. So it really is. I mean,
I try not to tell anybody that.
I know.
Well, then you'll appreciate this, because it really is. You have to, present almost an irrefutable case even before you present it to the final authority, let's say the foundation or the estate or whoever is the final arbiter of authenticity. You have to have all your I's dotted and T's crossed. So anyway, that piece, it aired, I believe, a few years ago, but we're still in the process of doing the authentication.
Kidding.
But it looks really good. And like I say, I'm a firm believer in the piece. And so far, just about everybody we've dealt with has been a firm believer. It's just a matter of getting that final, stamp.
So kind of along what Jillian was asking, and it doesn't have to be on Pawnstars, but have you ever had a piece come in that somebody said, I don't know what this is, and it turned out to just be something unbelievably amazing? Is there ever a story
We'll
like
talk
that?
a little bit about that. We have a Leonardo da Vinci here at the gallery.
And somebody brought that into you.
Somebody brought that into us, not really knowing what they had. And we took that through the authentication process to where it was finally authenticated to be the only sculptural work in existence from the hand of Leonardo. So
oh my gosh.
we'll talk about it.
Let's go do that.
In existence.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing, actually.
Yeah.
This is something we were talking about off camera about my Picasso, because I bought a Picasso from you.
Yes.
And people ask me, like, I have it on display. When you walk into my house, you've never been to my house, but if you walk into my house, it's the first thing you see. And people say, what is this? Because it's like a Medusa, right? Snakes coming out of the head and all this kind of clown. It's really cool. I'll try to I'll try to show it on the group or something. But so people always ask me, like, how can you afford a Picasso? And they think I'm stupid rich because I have a Picasso in my house.
Right.
And I always tell them the same thing.
And I will tell you he's not, because he makes me pick up the tab all the time.
That's true. And I use your credit card regularly. but I always tell people, I say, well, I don't know, how do you afford to go to Disney World? Because I think my Picasso cost me less than a trip to Disney World. Like, maybe not if you live like next to Disneyland like you do, but if you have to fly to Florida or something and like take your kids to Disneyland, it's going to be $3,000-$4,000.
And we're going to show some pieces out there that you can get for
and then that's a misconception a lot of people have. They think, oh gosh, Picasso, Moreau, I mean, those are going to be so far beyond their means. And you're right, with original works, one of a kind paintings and things, yes, probably so.
Yeah, you have a Picasso here. I saw $1 million+ price tag.
So, and let your people know that we take a credit card. And,
my credit limit is a little bit lower than that.
But,
we should syndicate that Picasso.
We should actually. We should syndicate a artwork sometime. It'd be fun.
We're not syndicating.
Yeah, we're doing
artwork.
that. We're doing that.
So
Brett's going to be my front man for it. It's going to be great.
And I think what you have, correct me if I'm wrong, I think was it an etching or was it a stone lithograph?
It's a lithograph.
Stone lithograph.
And then hand signed.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Artists like Picasso, they were very prolific. I mean, he would do, half dozen to a dozen pieces almost daily, you know, as far as prints and things. He was super prolific. He had tremendous energy all the way through to his passing, 60s, 70s. And, so you can get graphic works that were hand pulled from the etching plate and hand signed by Picasso for, a reasonable amount. I mean, still thousands of dollars, but like you say,
but low thousands of dollars, something that you can afford to
and these are works that are considered, they call them original graphics, because Picasso himself hand pulled them, hand incised the plate, then hand signed the print. So these were from the start to the finish, done solely by Picasso.
Never gonna take my freedom. You're never gonna